Hi, everybody. This is Philip Martin, and this is on film, on video. I used to play basketball. I used to play a lot of basketball, and sometimes you'd play. You didn't always have control of who you're playing against. And if you play basketball, you basically play against all comers, and sometimes you come into a situation where you have players of wildly divergent abilities and levels of experience on the same court. Um, One occasion, I remember particularly, I was on a court with a guy who was a lot better than me. He was bigger, stronger, he was faster. The only advantage I had was that he didn't quite realize how much better he was than me. But it being a competitive sport, I played him tight. And when he leaned on me, I pushed back. If he got the ball in position on a low block, I was lost. So I tried to, stay in front of him and keep the ball, stay between him and the ball. He played well. He beat me a lot. I mean, he scored a lot. And on the other end, I would hit a jump shot every now and then. I think I annoyed him. I think that. Anyway, he was better than me, and by the time the incident occurred, we both knew that. But anyway, toward after some minutes of playing, toward the end of the game probably, he caught a low bounce pass on the block. Instead of trying to whirl around me and shoot a layup, he went the other way, spun the other way, and he went backwards. And he was shooting like this really kind of, well, if you remember Dick Barnett of the New York Knicks, one of those kind of jump shots where he's falling back, he's got his leg kicked out. And for some reason, and this is one of the few moments of my athletic life that I can remember when things actually seemed to slow down. I could read what was happening as it was happening. And I went up with my left hand, my offhand, and I blocked it. And I not only blocked it, I slapped it. And I slapped that ball from this guy who was probably 6'5", 6'6", a couple inches, 3 to 4 inches taller than me. I slapped it into the stands. It was kind of, frustration on my part because he was better than me and I had a chance to, do something. And he came down and he hit me. And he just, pow, just straight out, straight right cross, caught me right in the jaw, knocked me back. And I stood there. And I was like, I'm just amazed. I'm taken aback. I didn't rush him. I didn't, and everybody jumps in between us, and it's all over really quick. And we, and I remember that to this day. And I still feel ashamed about it. And it's funny because intellectually I know I did the right thing. It's sort of like it's just a stupid game. You don't want, and we're adults, you don't want to get in a fist fight on a basketball court, especially with somebody who is bigger, stronger, and more athletic than you are. And he overreacted, and everybody knew it. And by the end of the game, he stormed off, and somebody came up. But I saw him. The next time I saw him, it was like, hey, man, sorry, we're good. We were good. But at the same time, I still think about that incident. I still think about, what I did not do. Even though I know that what I did not do was the wrong thing to do. Part of me still, feels bad about that. I feel bad about myself because I didn't retaliate. I didn't, do anything. I acted like Chris Rock did in the moment last Sunday night when he got slapped by Will Smith. And I'm sorry I'm laughing at this, but I have to because it's a silly thing. It's a silly thing that men do. And women do it too, I suppose. I mean, I heard someone talk about it. This thing. It's like, oh, like toxic masculinity. It's like women never get in fistfights. And of course, if you watch YouTube, you pay attention to this stuff, you know that women do get in fistfights, often in Walmarts. But I've been on both sides of this. You know, I can kind of understand Will Smith. I have been that, angry. Not in a long time. Not as a fully functioning adult have I ever acted out in that kind of way. I mean, the last time I remember doing something like that was, I must have been, 18 or so. And, there's one of these things, somebody made me mad and I grabbed them. I've done that. I've had scuffles on basketball courts and baseball diamonds because that stuff happens. And there's a different sort of, etiquette for that sort of situation. I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying, but it happens. And I have to be honest and say that I was a participant in more than one of those kind of silly, struggles. And then there was a time, and this still makes me feel bad, and I write about this in my Sunday column. I'm going to steal a little by my own thunder here. My Sunday style column. I'm going to steal a little bit of the thunder because I'm going to tell the story that I tell in that. I'll tell it in more detail here, I guess, at 89, 90, when I was going up regularly to Chicago. Long story, basically I lived in Chicago on the weekends. And I got there late one night, and we went to the grocery store, and I, bought some groceries. I had quite a bit of money on me. I had maybe $700, which back then at that time was a lot of money to me. And I was walking with my then wife back to our apartment on the University of Chicago, and a guy approached me. And I could tell right away it was trouble. He was a little guy, and he had like this Dixie cup, and he had, inside the Dixie cup, he was holding the Dixie cup on the edge of a screwdriver, and he started poking it at me and demanding that I give him my money. I don't know why he waited as long as he did, but we were right at the door when he did this, so I pushed my then wife inside, and I went inside, and he followed, and I caught him in the doorway. I pushed the door, and I hit him probably 30 times. I had him trapped, and and then I let him go, and I chased him. And when I got back, the cops were there, and I was covered with blood, not mine. And I thought, basically, I can understand, cops seeing someone excited and covered with blood coming toward I'm probably lucky I didn't get handled any rougher than I did, but they, first they wanted to arrest me. Okay. But anyway, I think about that incident, and I also feel really sick to my stomach. I don't agree with people who say we're built for violence. I don't think we are. I think we have trained that out of most of us. And when you're watching something like, first of all, I don't believe, I know some people do, I don't believe that the Oscar slap was planned, that it was a setup. I think that, for whatever reasons, and you can go to the tape and look at it, that Will Smith is sort of like caught in this place where he's like, oh God, he just said something about my wife, and I need to do something about that, which is a dubious idea, number one, because, it's just words, and she's perfectly capable of defending herself against words. Maybe if there's a physical altercation, you might have to step in or something, but it's just a comedian telling a joke, and not a good joke at it. And I don't know whether Chris Rock knew about the alopecia. or whether he just assumed, like I did. And I understand that Jada Pinkett Smith's been out there and she has talked about this, but it doesn't mean I have listened to it. I have never caught an episode of the Red Table thing. I don't generally watch the talk shows she appears on, so I didn't know. I mean, in fact, I had mentioned it, not in an unkind way earlier. I said, look at Jada's hairstyle. I had noticed that earlier in the evening. I said, it's pretty radical. I mean, I don't think it looks bad. I think it's kind of, and Tiffany Haddish, it's sort of not that far off. I mean, it's sort of like, okay, it's a fashion choice is what I assume. And if it's a fashion choice, then Chris Rock is perfectly okay doing a joke about a fashion choice and a dumb movie that's 25 years old. I mean, as he pointed out, or sort of pointed out, it was really more about a G.I. Jane joke than it was a Jada Pinkett Smith joke. Except it didn't land that way, and whenever someone tells you they don't get a joke or they don't understand something that you've written, they are right. They didn't. Okay. What bothered me about the incident in Chicago, it still bothers me about it, is that it didn't feel like an act of volition. It felt like something took over. And that I was just doing whatever the great puppet master was making me do. I did not feel at all a sense of agency in that. I mean, I'm a smart enough guy that even back then, I would know that the smart thing to do is to give the guy your money and not get not get stabbed with a screwdriver, not put anybody in danger. Just let's have this transaction. You go on your way. We'll call the police. Whatever happens after that happens. Fighting him was a bad idea. Even though I'm bigger than him, I was not scared of him, obviously. And the fact that there was a makeshift weapon involved just kind of made me angrier. Okay. But the thing that bothers me about it, makes me sick to my stomach even to this day when I think about that, is that I didn't have any control. Whatever it was rose up in me and just did what it did. That wasn't me. In a very real sense, that wasn't me. So I think that it is very possible that it wasn't really Will Smith doing that either. I mean, I think it's something kind of rose up in him and he went through it. And sure, there is a kind of a long runway there. I mean, sort of like you get up and you walk on stage, and that's why a lot of people think it's, a setup, because everything's caught perfectly in the camera for it. Why I don't think it was a setup was because, number one, the Oscars tried to censor it, at least here in this country. You had to go look at an overseas feed to actually get the full flavor of what happened. And Chris Rock's reaction, which was, first of all, I don't think he was expecting that slap. Second of all, he was flustered afterwards. When Will Smith is sitting in the audience shouting at him, keep my wife's name out of your... And he did it twice. And then the second time, Chris Rock says something like, don't worry, I will. Which sort of seemed to me like implied that, but wait till the rest of the comedians get a hold of this, because your name's going to be, and her name's going to be in everybody's mouth for the next however long. It's a bad, ugly situation. Because I know that shame that Chris Rock must feel just because he carried on as a professional. I mean, yeah, okay, let's say it was a bad joke, because it was poor. It was a poor choice. Let's give it that. I mean, at the very least, it's a lame joke. It's not much of a joke. It's not that funny. And if it is true that, if he knew about her condition, if he knew it was a medical problem, then it's bullying. And it's, even rich people and famous people, don't need that. I have a lot of respect for Chris Rock and his work, and I don't want to think that he did something cruel. But if that's what it was, that's what it was. We're still waiting to find out exactly. I haven't seen anything where he's explained his own thought process. I'm not sure that we will. I'm not sure that we should. But I'm just saying that, he's got to feel bad that having been slapped, he didn't like tackle Will Smith. I don't care that the guy's bigger than him. And Will Smith is a legitimately big guy. I would say he probably runs about 6'3", about 190. Having stood next to him, he's my size. He's basically my size. I wouldn't be afraid to fight him. I don't want to fight anybody. But he's one of the people that I would be afraid to fight. One of the Hollywood people I would be afraid to fight. Chris Rock is not that big. Chris Rock's a little guy, and he took that slap, and it's a wonder he didn't fall over. I mean, it had to sting. It probably stung Will Smith's hand pretty well too. And then he kind of bobbles the throw, to the documentary, and the whole thing sets up this horrible. How horrible must it have been to be in the room? The only people who really kind of emerge as come out well in this are like Denzel Washington and maybe Tyler Perry and maybe Bradley Cooper, who went over and talked to Will Smith, in the commercial break or whatever. I think Chris Rock comes off okay, but I don't think he thinks he comes off okay. I think that, that maleness of us, I really do. That's a really hard thing to overcome. Like I said, when the guy hit me and I backed off and didn't do anything, I feel as bad about that as the night I chased the mugger down, or tried to chase the mugger down after I beat him pretty good. You can't win. I mean, sort of like, violence is not the answer, obviously. I mean, sort of like, what do you accomplish? I mean, the open finger, at least he didn't close his fist on him. That slap is dismissive and it's disrespectful, which was the point. But he could have sat in his seat and hollered rude, or he could have just glowered at him. People would have got the point. He could have said something later, about, how unfortunate it is that Chris Rock has to pick on people that have medical problems. There's all kinds of ways to handle this. The whole dramatic thing going up there, and that's something a jerk does. And I don't know Will Smith. I've had limited interactions with him. I think he can be a jerk. I saw him be pretty rude to people who work for him. And that's just a little. I mean, everybody can have a bad day, and everybody can be disappointed in somebody who works for them. Don't get me wrong. And I don't pretend to know anything about that, but I did. I saw that side of him. Why we make so much of this? Well, it's happened on national TV in front of everybody. It's a huge distraction. The Oscars are a declining phenomenon in this country. People don't pay as much attention to the Oscars as they used to. That's why people think that this, and it's a legitimate thing to think. I don't believe it, but it's a legitimate thing to think that, they set this up and that Chris Rock and Will Smith are boys. I think if they had, I think Chris Rock would have sold the slap better. I think he would have stumbled backwards more. I think that it also wouldn't have been such a good slap. I mean, it's like extended. He's got his arm extended. It's good form. And there's a follow through. I mean, Will Smith's shoulder, ends up over here after he's done it, because that's a good follow through. He delivered a really good blow. I mean, it's a glancing blow. It's a slap. It's not, a punch. And I think that Chris Rock's right for not filing charges or anything, but that also leads people to believe that maybe it was a setup. I don't know. Sort of like, it ruined Will Smith's night. I mean, sort of like, who's going to remember this night as the night that he won Best Actor for King Richard, which I guess it ended up being the favorite to win that, and a lot of people expected that. I'm sort of surprised, still sort of surprised he won it, because the movie at best is a good, mediocre movie. I mean, it's a biopic that had some standard beats, that has just a little bit of an intimation of a roundedness of this character. I mean, they don't really give us the dirt on on Richard Williams, and it's understandable because Serena and Venus had a lot of input and were really kind of stewards of this thing, and they wanted to protect their dad, and I can understand that, and it's fine. The movie's fine. It's just I wouldn't think of it as the epitome of the Hollywood art, but then again, Will Smith deserved it. He's a good actor. He's done a lot of good things in Hollywood, and he's also a very bizarre character in our culture. I mean, he's not Kanye or Ye level weird, but he does have the Scientology thing. He does have the thing. He and Jada have that relationship thing. There's strangeness about him, but there's strangeness about most Hollywood types, and I think part of that is because you get warped by the culture that you engage with, and I think they've engaged a lot with Hollywood culture over the years, and that they've exploited that, and that maybe they deserve for people to wonder about whether this could have been a setup or not. Now, I don't think it's going to be a big deal going forward in Smith's career. I do think it's going to be the first thing that most of us think about when we think about him. And I do think that, Chris Rock probably, regrets telling that joke. He regrets the whole incident, even though it's probably going to raise his profile. How much does it need to be raised? I don't know. I mean, he's Chris Rock. And maybe he'll end up, hosting the Oscars next year or something, which I think would be, kind of a cool thing. But I don't know. It's and why we've spent so much time about it, but we spend so much time about it, like I said, because it is something that happened that we all saw. It is one of those points of cultural convergence that we all can kind of talk about and rely on others to know about. If we say something about it, we can all use it as a common reference point. And that's a good thing for society, I believe. When I had a lot of my friends on Oscar night tweeting out or putting on Facebook how they weren't watching the Oscars, and that's like, okay, fine. I didn't watch the Oscars to the end. I missed this. I didn't see this live. I saw it the next morning, because that's what my plan is. I'll watch the Oscars till I get tired or bored, and then I'll catch up in the morning on YouTube and see all the stuff I missed and see the, Troy Kotsur's, beautiful speech, which I think I did see live, actually. And I'll see this and I'll see that, and that's a fine way to do it. That's the way we live now. If anything, I guess it is good television. But I think if you're sitting there in that room, you're probably feeling really weird and strange. And I think that's what accounts for the sort of reaction that Smith got when he actually won the award. I think people didn't really know what to do. And I think in retrospect, it's really easy to sit here and say, well, they shouldn't have applauded him. Our security should have escorted him out. I'm sort of amazed that didn't happen. I'm also kind of amazed they didn't have, like Amy Schumer or Regina Hall or Wanda Sykes on immediately after to come up there and just kind of reset the show, to reboot it. But apparently there was 17 minutes before one of the hosts actually showed up again after that. So, that's part of why, I think everybody acted inappropriately on that night. And my feeling is, there's something wrong with us. Probably something wrong with all of us, but something certainly wrong with most men. And that I should feel okay about my actions in both of the scenarios I described. When the guy hit me and I didn't do anything, that was the right thing to do. I feel bad, though, about it. And when I defended myself when the guy, thrust a weapon at me, maybe I should have been smarter about it, but I shouldn't feel bad at having acted the way I did to protect, myself and others. There's obviously stuff but I do. And I think that Will Smith and Chris Rock probably both feel bad about it too. And these things are going to happen because we're human. And because we are, half of us, male and testosterone driven, with the culture we have, with this, with that. I don't think we're going to eliminate, violent, incidents. Maybe this all ought to just give us pause and think about, what we've done and what we could have done and what we might do better in the future. And I'll be honest with you, I'm no big fan of Will Smith, but I think I can empathize with what he did. And I can say that if not for the grace of God, maybe I would do the same thing. I hope not. But I'm not anything close to his situation. I don't know his pressures. I don't know his demons. And I think in a way it's good to talk about this. Anyway, I've spent way too much time talking about it. But hey, as they say in this culture that we live in, it is content. And we had content, and it's a terrible week for the movies, really. I mean, it's sort of like Mobius is opening, but we didn't get to see it. We'll have a review next week. The Contractor with Chris Pine. Whoopee. There is a really good Sundance scary movie that may or may not be opening here. I don't know yet. Hi, Audi. Okay, Audi makes an appearance, and that means it's time to go. Everybody, see you next week.